the voice. Everyone, please confirm that you can hear and see us, and then we can get started. And
yes,
Sofie, she can
I'm
introduce
from Denmark,
herself.
so hello everyone. And I'm sure that there might be some Danes joining us as well, but they're very punctual, so they will arrive in 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's like a typical Danish thing. I know. So, okay, then you can hear us and you can see us. Amazing. So, perfect, ladies. Thank you for confirming. So, today, Sofie is here with me. We met spontaneously. She's an expert within her field, and I just thought that the subject was amazing. I needed to have her here with me so we can talk about the jaw-pelvis connection. I think it's a very good and interesting subject in regards to what I do, and now that you do the poses, so we can learn a little bit more about the connection, because I always talk about the connection, and now we're going one level deeper, and I mean, who doesn't want to do that? So Sofie, I'll give you the words. Please introduce yourself. And
perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Monna. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Sofie. I'm a yoga teacher, yoga therapist, personal trainer. I'm practitioner, whole woman practitioner. So I'm really nerded about the pelvis and of course yoga, and yoga for women especially. So sorry guys, I'm a specialist within the women and the female body and female pelvic health, and of course a lot of the things are the same in the male body, of course. Hey everyone, just checking in on the people joining. Perfect. So what I told Monna is that this is really interesting, this whole face yoga subject, because it's all connected. We have one body and the mind, and of course the whole body is one whole. And the interesting is that when you work on your face, you're not only working on your face, you're working on your whole body. You're working on the parasympathetic nervous system. You're working on your fascia. So you're working the elastics of your body. You're working on your pelvic floor, actually, because they're intimately, like really closely connected, the pelvis and the pelvic floor and the jaw and the pelvis. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. What is the connection? And that is why we're here. So, hey, everyone. I'm just going to give the Danes like 1 minute to join if the Danish people are joining in as well before we get all nerdy. Yes. Can you hear me as well, Monna?
I can hear you. Yes, I'm just looking at the questions that I also want to ask you after we do the live. And ladies, you know that during the live you don't need to wait for us to finish. You can always interrupt, and I will stop Sofie, and then she can answer the questions you might have. This is a very new subject for many, even for me. So perfect, ladies. So we are we give it 1 more minute, and then we will start, and then Sofie, she can start her presentation. And the questions we really wanted Sofie to answer today is how they are related. She already introduced us a little bit, and I also always tell you that everything is connected. And you know that probably many of you, I see many of my usual live ladies, they're here today as well. So how jaw and pelvis are connected, the alignment and the relaxation, how they are affecting each other, and why it's important for us to have a healthy pelvic floor. So many are asking about age. You always do that, ladies. I don't know why it means so much to you, but I am 37 and Sofie is... Sofie, how old are you? They really want to know. They always want to know.
I'm 40 years old. I have 2 kids. My daughter turns 8 in like a month, and I have a son that's 2.5 years old. So yeah, that's my age. So 40 and fabulous.
Yeah, we like that. And like I always say, everyone asks me all the time. I say, you can be, I'm 37. I mean, you can be 60 and feel amazing. For me, age is just a number, but everyone likes to know your age. Then they will say you look older than your age, you look Then you age. But as long as you're happy with yourself, then age really doesn't matter. That's at least my
Definitely. And
take
also,
on it.
when we're going to talk a little bit about the fascia, you know, you have that juiciness inside your body. And you could be 60 and have a really juicy body, and you can be 20 and be really dry. So age doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. Okay, so it's 9:30 now. So please, Sofie, start your presentation, and maybe the first question you can answer is, yeah, introduce it and how they are related, the jaw and the pelvis, a little bit more in depth, so we can understand. Because for many of us, it's still okay, connected. It's one there and one there.
Thank
so
you
yeah,
so much
I'll
for
give you
having. So my take on this is a very holistic take. I'm not a physical therapist, not a doctor. So what we're going to talk about today is a conversation, and also to give you some knowledge and some consciousness about why they did it and how you can feel your body when you do your face yoga exercises. Okay, so there are several connections. The big connection is that we are one body. We were in embryo when we were in the womb. We were one little fish, right? So the head and the pelvis were connected, and at some point they split up, and then one little part became the mouth, and the other one became the anus. So we have this primal core. I call it the midline, and some people call it the neural core, and different words for it. But we have that little inner fish, and that little inner fish is still within us. So whenever we move our head, or not moving our head, or just chewing or eating soup and not chewing, not using our jaw, or tensing up too much, having too much stress, being too much in control, or wanting to compress something or suppress something, feelings, and all of these things, all connect. It's like a wave motion into our pelvis. So those two are intimately connected, because what happens in your head, in your jaw, in your cranium, that also mirrors into your pelvis, into your sacrum, right? So let me just bring a pelvis in here. So yeah,
bring
I have
the
my
pelvis.
own pelvis.
Bring
You all have your own pelvises, right? And when I'm talking about the sacrum, I'm talking about this, right? Part. So that's part of the whole pelvis area, right? And between the pelvis and your head, you have your spine. So, you know, like if you just think about it, where does your tongue start and where does it end? So if you just close your eyes and imagine, where does my tongue end? You can almost maybe imagine that it just emerges into your spine, and out of your spine emerges the pelvis at some point, right? So if you have disruption in your pelvis, like if you have some imbalances in your pelvis, it will reflect in your head and in your cranium, and vice versa. If you are tensed up, clenching your teeth, if I wore braces as a kid, so I've had lots of trouble with my jaws, and they moved 4 teeth that also moved everything around. So my jaw was clicking at some point. I'm really sore around my what's it called, the TMJs, right? So yeah, so all of that has definitely had an effect on my pelvis. And it's, you know, physical therapists, midwives, lots of people know this connection when they start manipulating or touching or moving your pelvis. You will see a relaxation up in your jaw and in your head, and vice versa. So that's what we're going to talk about, is that when you relax your jaw, if you're able to just have a little bit of space between your teeth as you're watching me speak now, just relax your jaw if you're able to. It's a small bit of space in between your teeth, and try and relax your tongue. Let it just be where it wants to be, not pushing or pressing anywhere, right? That little bit of relaxation, just like a natural intuitive relaxation without any too many cues, that will relax your pelvic floor area. I call it the pelvic diaphragm because I don't think it's a floor. Floor is stiff, right? So we don't have a stiff floor
Yes.
on the bottom. We have a flexible,
Oh.
elastic diaphragm that's breathing as we breathe with a respiratory diaphragm. And as you move and sing, that reflects like a wave, like ripple effect into your pelvic floor, let's say.
So what is like a typical sign that there is imbalance in your pelvic floor? Do we feel it in the pelvic floor, or do we feel it in the jaw? And does anyone have this kind of imbalance without even knowing? And how do they find out if no one tells them? Have you checked your pelvic floor? Is there something wrong with your TM? Do you have TMJ issues? Do you have tight masseter muscle? Do you grind your teeth? I mean,
all of the things that you're saying right there are symptoms, right? So if you go to the symptoms in the pelvic floor, what I see and what you can see in the statistics is that a lot of women, especially over 40, who've had kids, right? We have symptoms like pelvic organ prolapse, we have pelvic pain, we have, like, if you're tensing a lot around your jaw, we see actually a lot of hypertonic pelvic floor, which means that it's too tense, it's too tight. And because we have this Kegel culture, right? We want to do the Kegels, we want to be the good girl, we want to do our Kegels every day, and we want to make it strong, that pelvic floor. A lot of women, mostly, they overdo it, they do too much. So our pelvic floor is so tight that it's not able to move in response to what we do in our daily life. So if you want to jump, like that's stress incontinence, for example, you drip your pants, right?
Yes.
You also have pain during sex, for example, when you have that can have like an orgasm, that can create pain into your legs, also up to your head. When you have your period, for example, a lot of people have migraines, and migraines can create, that comes from here, but when you have your period, you have your uterus moving, expelling the uterine lining, right? So that is also, your uterus is doing this and creating like a ripple effect and a wave up to your head. So if you have those imbalances, it's really important to know what is your skull doing. That's why it's called craniosacral therapy as well, right? Cranials, they are one whole.
Yes.
So, and if you have headaches, if you have tension, you grind your teeth, you clench your teeth a lot, right? And you also maybe feel like emotionally, like the fifth chakra is here, right? If you have like emotional issues, like not being able to speak your truth, or you're really angry, like within the traditional Chinese medicine, you also have the meridian line from the throat to your pelvis, right? So if you're not able to speak your truth, you're holding things in, that could also be a symptom. It doesn't have to be physically, it can be emotional, right? Or like your voice is yes. Oh, it's like this, it's too much up on a high note. So if your voice is really high when speaking a high note or singing really high, your pelvic floor is actually lifting up as you sing a high note. So if you try at home, you can try, right? You can say, yes. You can just do that, and you will actually feel lifting. Sorry. and
oh, the kids are asleep. I'm gonna be too loud right now. They're upstairs, but I just had to try just to feel it. But yes, I definitely felt the elevation, you know, like yeah, because you're lifting the body when you're going. And like you said, with Chinese medicine, also if you have marionette lines, 11 lines, nasolabial lines, everything symbolizes something. But for example, let's say a lady, she has some kind of imbalance in the pelvic floor here. Where does she start? So does she start here? Does she start there? And ladies, remember, I'm not the only one who are allowed to ask questions. Please feel free. It's for me, I'm also learning a lot. So if you have any questions, drop them down there, and I will ask Sophia so she can answer. We're here to learn today even more. So yes, Sophia, please tell us, where do we start if there's an imbalance? and how do we know that this actually is what we need to do to create that
I
balance?
believe that we know within ourselves, of course, we have a body that's calling for attention, right? And it's been calling maybe for years. We don't hear it until the end where it's like screaming at you, and it's really, right?
Yes.
Why I think this connection is really important. It can actually start here. This is actually what Ina May Gaskin, spiritual midwife from the U.S., also Paula Garborg, an Israeli woman back in the 70s, they both talk about the sphincter law. So we have the sphincters, like the mouth and your eyes. Those sphincters are connected to the sphincters in your pelvis, right? So if you feel and you have an imbalance in your pelvis, a really soft and gentle way to work into your pelvic floor that's not Kegels, but a much more soft connection to your pelvic floor is actually through sphincters. So through your eyes, through your mouth. And also Ina May Gaskin, that midwife, all midwives, I'm sure if there are any midwives looking and watching this, you will all raise your hand and say, it's impossible to give birth to a child if you're like this, right? If you want to squeeze out like that, you cannot release and let go. So you have to have that relaxation in your jaw to let go, to orgasm, to poo, to go to the bathroom, to let go, to give birth to a baby. So that's actually called the sphincter law. And those sphincters is actually what you're doing in your face yoga. It could also be squeezing your eyes with your eyelids without doing this, right? So you're just squeezing it really slowly. You can try it with me. It's completely safe, and you can do it like 15 times. And you also notice actually connecting to the neural core, your inner interoception, that connection into your body, right? So if you close your eyes and just relax your eyes for a bit, relax your jaw, of course, well, at the same time, just a little bit of space in between your teeth. And then with the next in-breath, try and squeeze your eyes with your eyelids just a little bit. And when the exhalation comes, just relax the eyelids and feel the relaxation all the way down to your pelvic diaphragm. So the inhalation, inhale, you squeeze your eye just a little bit with your eyelid. And the exhale, you let go, release. So inhale and squeeze. Exhale, release. All right. You can do it one more time. Yeah. Can you feel it?
Yes.
Have that
yeah, definitely.
response, like the natural intuitive response of your pelvic floor, because it's responsive to your diaphragm. You have your pelvic floor, your diaphragm, and then you have all these structures. Those openings are like communicating directly with the openings in your pelvis, which is amazing. So it's connecting, communicating to your pelvic floor. It's moving as you're breathing. So we want that, of course, to work with your breath. But as you squeeze and you work with your breath, you actually work with the sphincters in your pelvis. Also, when you're doing all these exercises for your lips and your mouth, right? All of you're doing something like that. But Paula Garborg in the 70s, she did this one, is that you lift your upper lip underneath your nose, right? So you do like this and down. Just that will also have an elevation in your pelvis. Do you feel it? Just and you can also do.
Yeah, I actually tried, since we started talking, to feel that if I did something, could I feel it in my pelvis? Because I've never thought, okay, can I feel it down there? But there were some exercises when I did them, I felt it. I'm like, okay, there is a connection, because, normally we just think that there is the spine, and, I think in muscles. I don't necessarily think in pelvis. And so but I could definitely feel, even when I took a deep breath, even when I do some exercises, it's kind of like squinting down there without you being aware of it. So I felt the connection, and I love when I feel the connection, because that once again proves to me that everything is connected. Like I always say, you know, the forehead muscle that goes all the way here that are connected with the other muscle that goes down to the lower back. So that's why it's so important we always have proper posture, shoulders back, because when we have that and we don't have any tension, this is where we can get all the benefits of the face yoga poses, of the breathing, literally of everything when we do. There is a question here. So Tartel is asking, please, could you speak about the right posture of the tongue? Best regards from Mexico City.
That is actually, I can recommend the book from James Nestor called Breath. He has a really amazing book, and I'll go into that as well while we're talking about the tongue. The placement of the tongue is actually really interesting, since we have a westernized society, right? We're not using our jaw as much we used to, right? So I can recommend you tongue kissing with your husband, and you know, trying to do all these different things, cleaning your teeth with your tongue, you know, with the goal of actually relaxing your jaw, but also to sense that vagus nerve that we have inside of us to relax our system. That tongue has a really interesting postural role within our body. So like they're actually talking, I think it's called myofascial something with the work of the tongue. They're working with the posture of your tongue that has an important impact and role in your whole neck area and your thorax, like the upper body, the upper chest area. How you correct this will affect, of course, your pelvis as well. So the tongue should actually be right behind your front teeth, top of the palate, and then having like a wave motion back. The back of the tongue will touch the top of the palate here, and then you have a relaxed bottom of the.
Yeah, and someone also calls it, you know, mewing, that it can help you with asymmetries and it can create more alignment. But mewing is something that you should do. I mean, long term, it's not just putting the tongue in the top, in the roof of the mouth and expecting wonders. Everything is something you need to be consistent about. It should be done accordingly. So this is why when people, they ask, for example, even for one exercise, yeah, I mean, everything's go together. Even now when Sofie is with us tonight, we can even feel that it's not only the muscles, also the pelvis. So it really shows us how deeply we are connected. Deborah, she's saying here, I don't know if you were done, Sofie, but I'll take the next question. Or you know, you can finish, and then we'll take the next question.
If you don't know if you have the right tongue placement, right? If you have like marks of your teeth on your tongue when you wake up in the morning, you know that you need to work on your tongue. And you probably can tell that you have headaches, or you have tension in this area, or you have some postural issues as well, right? Also, that tongue placement also has a big role, like tongue to tail, that connection, same connection, jaw to pelvis, right? So that connection, if your tongue is like trying to stabilize your upper body, right? It's tension, it's creating tension in your pelvic floor, definitely, in my opinion, of course. So you have some tension. You can see your teeth marks on your tongue. You're grinding your teeth during the night, or you're clenching. You have really sore jaws. You can work on the jaw and the placement of the tongue as well. But you also need to breathe through your nose. That has a big influence on that whole system as well.
Definitely. So there was another question here from Deborah. She's saying, as a singer, high voice, have I been overdoing contracting the pelvic floor? Can you show where and what is the pelvic floor? Can you show where and what is the pelvic floor? So you want to see it? I guess she wants to see it. Little friend there.
So singer, if you're an opera singer or just a soprano, right? You need to be aware that you have to relax your pelvic floor area, because that is lifting up as you sing high notes, right? So deep voice notes, you can do the undertone work, or you can actually do breath work. Releasing the tension of your jaw will also help release the tension in your pelvic floor area. So imagine like the pelvic floor needs, I hate saying floor, but you know what I'm like the pelvic diaphragm needs to be just as flexible as the respiratory diaphragm. As a singer, you know that this has to work really well, contracting up and down. And as you're doing this with your respiratory diaphragm, your pelvic diaphragm is moving with it. It should way, right? So let me just collect my pelvis here and show you. Here we go. So this is we have many muscles. It's not, I wouldn't even call it muscle, right? I would call it maybe intelligent tissue, right? And I always present the pelvis in this position like we were an animal on all fours, because this is interesting, right? We have all of these openings and we have these really cool bones, the tailbone, the tuberosities here, and the pubic bones underneath us here, right? So this pelvic floor area, of course, some areas are more vulnerable than others because they have holes. We need to let go. So that whole idea of the locking, like also in yoga, I think it's misunderstood that we talk about the locks, right? The bandhas. We always have to lock and be tight. And also in training, we have to be tight, the six pack, and work really hard to be looking like a guy almost, right? I believe since we have these openings and the purpose of the pelvic floor is to release, manage internal pressure, it needs to be able to move. It needs to be really elastic, right? It needs to move with your diaphragm, the respiratory diaphragm, move with your breath, move with your movements, okay? Yeah. But here, the pelvic floor, it also has nerves, like the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, as you know, that travels as the wanderer. It travels all the way down to the pelvis. And when you have an orgasm or when you release the pelvic floor, when you go to the toilet, when you poop, for example, you have to be in a state of parasympathetic nervous system state. The rest, digest, and repair. I'm not able to poop if I have like 7 kids banging on my door or people coming in and interrupting. The same as giving birth. That needs to be taken into consideration. When you work on your pelvic floor, in my opinion, I think it's more important to unlock, and release, because that's where we're getting the juice from. We need a muscle to be able to expand, to be able to contract. Right?
So when you say to expand, in my mind, I'm thinking, but don't I only need to do that when I give birth or when I go to the bathroom? Why would I need to do it at other timings? I don't see when and why. Please explain. And then also there's another question here. So Deborah's saying, so the pelvic floor is not parallel to the floor.
Well, that's my eyes, okay? So because I'm working with a perspective that considers the female body and the placement of the female pelvis like this, actually. The female sacrum and the spines, we have three wedged vertebrae in comparison to 2 wedged vertebrae on a man. So we have a more considered lumbar spine than males do. And we have this flexible spine and this flexible pelvis, females do, because we have to be able to give birth, right? Yes, so that's my view. And also there's been Christine Kent and Linda Brubaker and several others, also Mr. Davies back in the 50s, that actually at the same time as Dr. Kegel came around with his theories, he actually made the statement that have a misunderstanding about the female pelvis being like a bowl with a bottom underneath. So what I work with is actually working into this posture, having more of a pelvic floor bouncing to the back more, and with a support of the bony pelvic floor instead of the muscles being like those charged, and that we need a pelvic floor to. That leads me to that point, that question you had, Monna, was that, okay, why do I need, like, if I only have to use my pelvic floor to release times in my life, or, we have to release blood, when you bleed, you have to let go, you pee,
Yes.
poo, and then also give orgasm of many.
But this is something that these aspects that you're mentioning is something that for you know, normal people, for us that are not, you know, experts within this field, we don't think that we are giving blood. We don't think we're peeing. This is just natural. This is what the body does. So let's say that I didn't get to know you here, and I didn't knew anything about this connection. Would I be missing out on something that was really like important, or is the body not making sure that everything, because it's connected,
Of
it is
course,
as it's supposed to be?
our body is natural and it has all the tools that you need, right? So you have everything you need. You don't need anything else. But what I find is actually we need to wake up sometimes and also to remember what we are capable of. Yeah. So when
Yes, of course.
when you go to the bathroom, for example, a lot of people have constipation. They're not able to let go. So what helps? Open your mouth and maybe do an ocean breath, like release the jaw. When you release the jaw, open your mouth, also giving birth, you can release and relax, right? So that are like little life hacks that are really important to know. Like trying and you're eating poorly, like your diet is not really good. You have to know these things when you go to the bathroom, for example. But of course, you don't need to go and relax all the time. You need the pelvic floor to expand and contract when you need to. So that's the whole point of just knowing yourself, getting to know that relaxation also gives blood circulation of energy. So when you go out and lift and you walk and you do your daily activity, like you are able to move and it's able to move with you. So you don't pee your pants. So you don't have pain in your back, for example, or your pelvis or your hips, or your hip pain actually comes from hypertonic pelvic floor and also come from a jaw that is really tense. That's what I wrote you. There's a study from 2009, Fisher study, that actually showed that when you release the jaw, you increase the mobility of the hips. And that's interesting, right?
Yes. Yeah. And even Sheena, she's saying here, we need the pelvic, oh, it disappeared. We need the pelvic floor to be relaxed so it can contract and activate when it should not, when we think it should. Yeah, that makes
and also
sense. Thank you,
the pelvic
Sheena,
floor or pelvic diaphragm is also part of our posture. So we're talking about the tongue, we're talking about the respiratory diaphragm and the pelvic diaphragm. And if just like, what amazes me, and my opinion, that's on me, but it amazes me that we created a Kegel culture, like isolating one muscle, right? And you know this, you can't isolate one thing and just do this one thing in your face. You need to work different muscles. You need to work the whole body to have like a good posture or a good face or whatever. So that Kegeling culture just amazes me. Why do we think that this will give us a strong, healthy, functional pelvic floor? I have no idea. Like this.
So you are against the Kegel. You know, we normally get, you know, they recommend we do it after having birth so we can be tight and blah 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 everything. So if we were not doing that, what is your recommendation? Because this is what they tell us at the hospital, that now you need to start working so you can have your life back and everything can get back to normal.
Yeah.
So what is the alternatives to this?
Of course, Kegels have some reasoning. Of course, after birth, it's good to create contact again. Like you have a road, it's broken, you need to build pavement again, right? You need to have that contact. But you know, in my work, I find it much easier to work with postpartum women through the eyes and the mouth, because that gives you an intuitive contact down internally, interoception into your pelvic floor. Like the mouth, for example, like the same thing that we did with the eyes, try and do the same thing with your mouth. Like I'm not able to see it with you, but you shouldn't see it with me either. So you have the mouth, and I squeeze, I just create a little bit of tension in my lips and relax. Just a little bit of tension in my lips and relax. Try it again. And I shouldn't see it, Monna. So do it without me being able to see it. So just a tiny, tiny bit, like almost invincible.
But now I feel it down in my pelvis, because I would have never felt it or thought about it if you didn't tell me. But now when I do stuff, even when I put the tongue in the roof of my mouth, I feel the elevation. Now when you, and now when you said to me, like, do the high note, oh, I felt it. I'm like, okay, this is actually, you know, for me, very fascinating, because this is also what was very fascinating for me. You know, I'm a cosmetologist back from 2003, and we always worked on the outside with the right skincare, with massages. And then when I was like 35, I was like, okay, I need to do something. I have 3 kids. I don't look 22-year-old anymore. And then I stumbled upon face yoga. And when I look at these muscle diagrams and I see the connection, I mean, for me, it's just on a different level, because, you know, when I graduated as a cosmetologist, I knew stuff, but then to have it up, look at it again, and really understanding a little bit deeper and a little bit more, very, 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 very interesting. And also because it's some things you will never know unless you get exposed to it. For example, also this with the pelvic floor. So this is not something we learned when I got certified as a cosmetologist. But when you tell me now, it just makes so much sense to build it on top of what I already know. And you know, for me, I always say, feel the sensation, feel the connection, understand the connection. So I'm a little bit like, wee, right now. Yeah, definitely. So yes, I also have another question here. So it says here, what is?
I can maybe just finish about the Kegel. Yeah, because the Kegel is old school. It was 50s, and you.
Okay.
So that's your opinion. Yeah. Okay. Don't and several more people, and the whole paradigm within this business and area within the yoga and pelvic floor, of course. A lot of hearts giving like yes. And because we're changing from a more mechanistic model to a biointelligent model. The body is intelligent, it's moving, you also have the fascial lines connecting the deep fascial frontal line all the way down to the pelvic floor. Like, you need an elastic pelvic floor to move around. And the Kegel can help to some point, but you have big, long studies that actually show that they help in the long run. You have like some studies showing, yes, they help maybe for 3 months, and maybe a little bit of symptoms of incontinence, for example. We have new studies coming like in from the side about hypopressive, for example, like showing studies that are actually better, like the results are better, right? And like a lot of people want evidence-based. It takes years to get the evidence-based, and what we have evidence for is the Kegel. So of course a lot of people are still holding on to that Kegel, but more alternatives are coming in from the side, you know, acupuncture as well, the pressure in the meridian line, fascial work like fascia flow training, everything that is getting more and more space, also getting more heavy in the evidence space, which is awesome, because now we're moving into a new paradigm. So that old school thought has to be replaced at some point, but it takes years and years and years. The doctors are still telling us the same thing, squeeze, because back in the days, we could only measure the strength of the pelvic floor from a machine that would, you know, like squeeze this hard and then yes, you are strong. But it wasn't, maybe it wasn't strong when you had to run after your kids or jump the trampoline or do your daily stuff, right? Which is functional, which is important. So that side note on the Kegel.
So, for example, now that we're getting a little bit more knowledge about this thing for all of us who are finding the connection new. So, when today we leave this life, what are we supposed to do so we can, you know, create a better, more balanced pelvic floor? What is your advice to many of us that are new within this? You say here also that. Yeah, the pelvis and jaw. Why? I mean, why is it, like I said, we talked about why it's so important to have a healthy pelvic floor. But if what are we going to do after this life so we can maintain and make sure that we have this pelvic floor and you know it can carry us through life in the
There's not
best way
one
possible?
answer to that, but the one answer is to breathe like Sana life, like have that life breathing through your body every day. And that for some people that means moving a lot. Like movement is really important for all of us. We're not moving enough, like we're just inactive, too inactive, and that just stiffens and dries out our body, right? And that stiffens and dries out your pelvic floor.
Yes.
So that moving is just important. You need to find out what works for you. Some people like to run, people like to walk. If you know, if you've never worked or if you've never worked out before, walking is really good. That works your pelvic floor. Just every step you take, breathing, like if you're really stressed and tensed up, like friends like this. Speaking of the jaw, you need to maybe just start breathing and work.
Yeah, and we do see, yes, and we do see that a lot. Many women, they have a lot of tension in the jaw area. They have a lot of tension in the lower face, in the neck, also due to poor posture. So the whole thing kind of starts here, but because everything is connected, and for example, if you had bad posture, it will show. We all have one side of the neck that's longer than the other. This shows which one is. We all sit in different ways, so all these small things can cause asymmetry. But it's very interesting to know that if you have this, again, this active holistic lifestyle, you create a deeper kind of awareness in regards to your breathing, your posture, the way you eat, the way you sleep, your tongue posture, that it can keep the pelvis
and just
healthy.
Put on top of that, what I work with in my yoga practice, right? I teach online mostly these days, is freeing the tailbone. If you're doing a lot of Kegeling, of course, people want to do good, right? We've done a lot of Kegeling but that's what we've been told. We can actually create really a tension around the pelvis, which is falling apart. Because this part becomes really tense, shortening. So the feeling of your tailbone might feel really locked, which locks in your hips, locks in your spine, and your ability to move freely. So that is a fun thing to work with as well. If you want to try it, just like, can I move my tail? Can I my tuberosities, like, can they widen? Can I expand and relax my pelvic floor area? That's where the help from the other end of your pelvis, the cranium, you know, your sacrum, cranium, that way in, that's like the secret way and secret weapon to a functional free pelvic floor.
And even Sheena, she's writing here, most people tuck the pelvic floor, so that compromises the working ability of the pelvic floor. To everyone that's not into this, can you please elaborate?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So most people tuck the pelvic floor, so that compromises the working ability of the pelvic floor. And is that what you meant in regards to the Kegels, that when you do that too? Yes,
I think she's meaning
I understand
tucking
now.
the tail, right? So if you're, let me just demonstrate. If you're here, if you're tucking your tail, this part, your pelvic floor becomes shorter, right? And we also loosens a little bit, right? So if you're tucking your tail under like this, it shortens everything, and it can actually pull your pelvic organ further back and down into a prolapse, might I say. So this posture, you know, this is not a good female posture. You want to lift the tail up. You want to have freedom to move around, to squat, to walk, to freely, okay? I hope that's answer enough. So yes, that can happen if you tuck your tail a lot. If you sit on your tailbone, like sitting working and hanging into your back, like round your back, sitting down and inactivating your glutes, you're sitting and hanging onto your pelvic, your tailbone. That might even hurt. Like that's also a symptom. Like if you're hurting in your tailbone, it means like it needs to be freed a little bit. More glutes. You need to work on your glutes, walk, run, whatever you want to do.
Definitely. Yeah. And even when you just did that posture that we are seeing, unfortunately, due to the usage of technology, that posture is just getting worse and worse, and people are having tension. They are, you know, they're exactly, they're having double chins, they're having lines, they're having tension. Like you say, if you sit too much down at work, you will also get, you know, pain in your pelvic floor, in your back, everywhere. So this is just another way of saying we need to be active as much as we can. So is there a specific exercises that you recommend or best to have a healthy pelvic floor, or is it just in general being active, running? And just Deborah saying this has been so eye-opening. Thank you. We're very happy to hear that,
things that
Deborah.
you've tried today already, with the squeezing of your eyes, squeezing of your lips, and I'm sure you have like a whole catalog of exercises. Also, like if you do yoga on basis, you know, the lion's breath, right? And also here. Those are awesome to do on a regular basis, even when you're working, right? But I always recommend coming down on all fours, right? I'll just demonstrate. Let's see if you can.
Yes, please.
I have my. Let's see if the phone goes down. So coming down on all fours.
Yeah.
That proprioception of where's my hips and my, like the hips, knees, and shoulders over your wrists.
Yeah.
That is really important. Then lifting and freeing the tail, right, and spreading out your sitting bones, your tuberosities, like widening them, and you know, good old school cow is like awesome. Okay, so this one is really good. But this one we're really good at. We need to move on this one as well. Maybe write your name with your tail or whatever, right? So
yes, I'm doing it. You can see I'm
the inner
with my shoulders.
Like, that is a circle, like that inner fish. We find.
Yes. There's not enough space for me to go down here, but I totally understand. Yeah, I totally understand. So again, I feel with these poses, especially, you know, I run a lot and I do body pump, but I definitely feel that sometimes many of the things are pulling us back to these basic, not basic, but you know, the fundamental yoga poses, because they, I mean, are so beneficial in so many ways. And I see
and also like some
well.
of the techniques that I use as well is like unwinding, like unfolding your body, like more spiritual way, like the fascial connection to your body, like treating your body an elastic band that you don't want to break, right? You want it to widen and be more and more juicy. Like when you're working the shoulder, you don't want to do old fashioned right? You want it really soft, opening under your lats, and that connection, just like opening through your lats and your underarm, that has a connection to your psoas muscle inside, close to your growing out of your spine and hugging your pelvis and connecting to your thigh bones, right? So when you're like just this one thing, like unfolding and unwinding the shoulder, like just open up and just feeling not going to 100%, but maybe just 50, like a little bit, like exploring your his ability to move, this is
Yes.
also working on your pelvis and your pelvic floor. Okay, so
yeah, it's even the small movements, like you said, even just doing this or just doing a neck stretch, it really makes a difference. Just these
yes,
small things. So we have a question here that says, I have always had pain on sacrum. I understood it was the position it grew. It sit on a towel or cushion. Okay, I didn't understand that question, but I do believe you do. You do.
yeah, so you're taking, or is it the tailbone hurting? I need to. I can't see the questions here, so.
No, the question, I have always had pain on sacrum.
Sacroiliac
Sacrum
joint,
means,
SI.
I don't,
A
yeah.
lot of people hurt that area because that's where the pelvis is supposed to be moving, right? That's the movable part. So we need to have that stabilized. So you can stabilize that with a lot of different exercises. Like for example, the mermaid. A mermaid. I'll show you here if you want to join me. I'm not sure if you can hear that well. I don't have my on.
Yeah, we can hear you when you go back.
Me
Yes,
here on the floor?
we can hear.
Okay, I'll just move you with me here.
Yes.
Okay. So this little mermaid, right? So I fold in one leg here and the other one's folded in like this. You sit on one sit bone more than the other. This one is really good as a base, and then you can try and squeeze the buttocks and turn in over your leg. Like some of you've probably tried like pigeon pose or mermaid in different areas. But this little soft little movement can actually mobilize and stabilize your SI joints at the same time. So you just squeeze your butt and twist and turn a little bit over the knee that's to your front. This little one, just nice and easy, right? Mm.
Is it correct that I can also
Definitely,
feel
because
it
you're
between my shoulder
your whole
blades?
fascia, you're doing a spiral up, okay?
Yes.
So you're twisting and turning, and that is like giving you the ripples up into your thorax as well. So yes, definitely. And then let's just do the other side. Just a small, tiny little thing you can do at home. Maybe it feels really stiff. You can always hold out one leg. We'll do it like this if you want. Okay. But if you fold this one in, squeeze and twist and turn just a little bit, rocking. It's like the rocking mermaid. So you rock and squeeze.
Now I see it saying, now some of the face yoga poses make sense. I understand. So you didn't understand them before? No, I'm just kidding.
Also.
Yeah, definitely. No, I definitely feel, even since, you know, I started running a lot and I do body pumps. So even I came to a point where I always say my hips, I tell my husband my hips hurt. Maybe it is the pelvic floor that needs softening. Now, when I do these poses, so all my friends are like, come, let's do yoga, let's do Pilates. I'm like, I'm not that flexible, but I can definitely see that we should work on that flexibility in the body, both for now and also as we age, so we don't get stiff. And even my husband, he's more like a muscle, and he does it because he feels a release, and that he gets more, I don't know, you know, he says he's stiff, but it releases the tension, and exactly, and he sits on the
yoga is not for everyone, but you can call it mobility or just fascial stretching, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. Yoga is just like one brain word, right? So throw that away and then just think, like, if you're sitting down, you need to counteract what you're doing all day long. Sitting on a chair for 8 hours like this, you need to do the opposite. Open up. You need to strengthen the back, like your erectus spinae, your back muscles. You need to lengthen your hamstrings, right? So you can bend from your hips and not be stiff like this.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we need to like counteract. So that's just like, you need to think, okay, if I'm 8 hours like this, it could be maybe 8 hours the other way around. So work your back opening of the front. All right. Lunges, like opening up your hips.
Yes.
Of course, the hip, like if you want to go into a
Yes.
pigeon pose and you think, oh, I'm so not good enough for a pigeon pose, not flexible enough. Of course, working on your pelvic floor area, part of your hips, and working on your hamstrings, like you stretch
Definitely.
after you're running, the typical stretches, right? You're probably doing this one, this one, and this is good, but you can maybe stay here for a little longer, thing, letting your belly melt into your thigh, and maybe be a little softer with your stretch.
Yes, I can see what you mean. Yeah. We had a question here saying, so is belly dancing also good for the pelvic floor? And I'm not the expert, but I would say yes.
I'm not an expert in belly dancing. I used to dance when I was younger. Yes, of course. Yeah. I think like a lot of those women dancing like that, they don't have any issues with the pelvic floor, and their hips are like really nice and flexible. Like Denmark and Scandinavia have like really tight hips and really tight pelvises. Like you need to do more, right? So yeah, and that's why.
Yeah, we're not South America, you know, we're not South American, and you know, all these countries where there's a lot of salsa and thing going. We don't have that. No, it definitely makes sense. So what Sofie is actually saying today, and not me, is move, ladies, move a little bit more. We're sitting a lot down during the day, and we just need to take those breaks. We need to be active. We need to think about posture, the way we sleep. We need to just, you know, get the whole thing moving. And when that happens, we always get more happier. We always get more vibrant. We always get more glowing. And in the end, this is what we all want. So that's that totally makes sense. If there's no more questions here for Sofie, I'll just check before I will. I love your, she loves your pants. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sofie, and we have Deborah saying, thank you, Sofie, for the mermaid one. I will work on it. Do your thing, Deborah. Then I will just check if there's any final one. Doing a little bit of scrolling here. Bum, 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 bum. Yes, I think, thank you from Argentina. So, and I also want to say thank you so much to Sofie for joining me today. I've already, I learned a lot, and I will definitely look a little bit more into it, because this is also an extension to what I do. And again, it makes perfect sense. Sofie, it was amazing having you here today. Maybe we'll even do a new live if someone missed out today, but I will save the live on my feed. I promise to all the ladies around the world that were not able to make it today. If there's any last questions, we'll take one if there's any, or if you want to wrap it up, Sofie, with a final thing, please do. And then we will say good night and sleep tight, or have a good day wherever you are.
My final thing is that I believe that we need to go home. Like we need to find our way home. Like in this area, when we talk about the pelvis, like you have the Muladhara and the Svadhisthana chakra meeting into a yoni stana. Like this, the yoni stana, you belong, right? Home. And bringing like yourself home, we need to find and remember and reclaim what we already know. Because we know it. And women are so intelligent. We have just forgotten, maybe, and we need to find a way back into this intelligent way of moving and believing that we have a body, and earth and nature is all connected. So the whole is connected.
Yes, definitely. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Remember to follow Sofie. I will put, I'm just taking a screenshot here, and I will put her tag in my story. So go follow her. She has amazing info on her feed, and she even puts out these small videos that we can benefit from, all of us. Gauhar Singh, thank you for enlightening us on the topic, and I say thank you as well. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and I will hopefully see you again soon. Thank you so much, Sofie, for joining once again. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye. So you will